6 years. That's how long I worked double shifts at the metal plant so my wife could chase her PhD. 6 years of waking before sunrise, coming home after dark, smelling like steel dust and oil and telling myself it was temporary. Her name was Lauren Hale, and when we married, she called us a team. She'd study, I'd hold the line until she finished. Once I graduate, she'd say, "We'll finally live." I believed her. We shared a one-bedroom rental with peeling paint ramen dinners and a coffee maker I bought after a 14-hour overtime shift. Every time she opened a new textbook or traveled to a conference, I told myself the sacrifices would pay off. By 2021, the finish line arrived. Lauren defended her dissertation and passed. The university hosted a celebration in the faculty lounge. She told me it was important I come. "You're part of this too." I put on my only good suit, polished my old boots, and drove there feeling proud. When I walked in, I realized I was out of place. Professors spoke in theories I didn't understand. Glasses clinked. Someone played soft jazz. But pride carried me through. She had worked hard, and I was proud of both of us. Lauren stood surrounded by her colleagues, radiant under the warm lights. Her advisor, Professor Adler, told her, "You've done remarkable work on power imbalance in relationships." I smiled at that without realizing the irony. I was sipping fruit punch near the refreshment table when she approached me, an ivory envelope in hand. "Evan," she said politely. She only used my full name in public. "I have something for you." I thought maybe a thank you card or a note telling me how much she appreciated everything. I opened it expecting warmth. Instead, I found divorce papers, signed, notarized, dated last week. For a second, I thought it was a mistake. Then I saw her expression calm, resolved. "Now that I have my degree," she said, voice clear enough for people around us to hear, "I can finally be independent. I don't need to carry dead weight anymore." Dead weight. The word landed like a slap in front of a room full of scholars. Conversations froze. Professor Adler's smile vanished. I didn't say anything. I just took the pen from my jacket pocket, the same cheap pen I used to sign every overtime form for 6 years, and signed each page, one by one. My hands didn't shake. When I finished, I placed the papers back in the envelope and handed them to her. "Congratulations," I said quietly, "on both achievements." Someone chuckled nervously. A younger lecturer whispered, "Well, that was efficient." Another voice muttered, "Good for her." I set my drink down and walked out. The drive home felt like static. Every song on the radio sounded distant, muffled, irrelevant. When I pulled into our driveway, the porch light blinked like it didn't recognize me anymore. Inside the house looked smaller. The framed photo of her graduation cap on the table mocked me in silence. I stood there a long time until the air felt heavy. Then something inside clicked, not rage exactly, but clarity. If she thought I was dead weight, I'd show her what that weight carried. What she didn't know was that I already had offers lined up. My supervisor's friend Spencer Crawford managed a facility in Denver and had tried for months to recruit me. Better pay, real growth. I'd planned to surprise her after graduation. Now it would just be my escape. I dialed Spencer. He answered on the second ring. "Tell me you're ready," he said. "When can I start? How about Monday done?" That was Thursday night. I had 4 days to erase a life. Friday morning, I called in sick to the plant. I drove straight to the bank. Our joint account stared back at me 6 years of deposits from my paychecks, withdrawals for tuition books and conferences. She'd contributed maybe $3,000 total, so I left exactly that amount. Fair was fair. I closed the account, opened a new one under my name, and transferred the rest. Next, the lease. I called our landlord, Mrs. Caldwell, a woman who'd lived through 3 divorces and spoke like nothing could shock her. "You want off the lease?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. She can qualify on her own now." "I'll send papers. She'll manage," I said. "She has a PhD now." Mrs. Caldwell snorted softly. "Degrees don't pay rent, Mr. Hale. Jobs do." Saturday, I rented a small moving truck. It didn't take much time to pack. Turns out, when you've been living paycheck to paycheck, you don't own much. A few boxes of clothes, my tools, the TV I'd bought secondhand. I was taping the last box when Lauren came home. She froze at the door. "What are you doing moving?" Don't be ridiculous. We need to talk. We already did, I said. At your party. That was a mistake. I was stressed. I said things I didn't mean. I looked at her. Which part? The independent part or the dead weight part? She didn't answer. The moving truck arrived. 2 guys loaded boxes while she stood in the doorway, still trying to control the narrative. You can't just leave, she snapped. I'm just giving you what you asked for. Where will you go somewhere that appreciates the weight I carry? Her voice cracked. Evan. I never wanted this to happen. Yes, you did, I said softly. You just didn't expect me to agree. At 2 p.m., the truck pulled away. She followed me to my car, still talking half apology, half panic. You're overreacting 6 years of double shifts so you could study. You hand me divorce papers in front of your professors. Tell me again how I'm overreacting. I never asked you to do all that and you never told me not to, I replied. I rolled down the window before leaving. The utilities go off Monday. Lease transfer by Wednesday or Mrs. Caldwell will evict you both. The papers are on the counter. Evan, and congratulations on the PhD, I added. You earned it. Then I drove away. By Sunday night, I was checked into a motel just outside Denver, staring at the mountains through a rain-streaked window. The air smelled like snow and possibility. I called my mother, told her everything. She listened quietly, then said, good. That girl never knew what she had. Time to find someone who does. Monday morning, I walked into Falcon Denver's facility wearing that same suit from the graduation party. Spencer introduced me to the team as the guy who'll fix production. I didn't say much. I just looked around at the machines, the workers, the buzz of work I understood. For the first time in years, I felt grounded. Lauren was probably waking up in the blue house wondering where the coffee maker went. Maybe she'd call our bank. Maybe she'd ask Mrs. Caldwell why my name disappeared from the lease. Maybe she'd tell her friends she needed space. It didn't matter. The life I'd built around her dream had collapsed, but I was still standing. That morning, while signing new hire forms, I noticed the blank line under emergency contact. I didn't write her name. I left it empty. A small space for a future I hadn't defined yet. That night alone in my motel room, I realized something simple. The divorce papers she'd given me weren't a loss, they were a receipt. 6 years of investment now returned with interest I never saw coming. And for the first time in a very long time, I slept without setting an alarm. Monday morning came fast. I woke in a Denver motel room that smelled faintly of coffee and new beginnings. For the first time in 6 years, I didn't have to rush anywhere. No alarm screaming at 4:00 a.m. No clock dictating when I could eat or breathe. Just a quiet room, sunlight cutting across the carpet, and the faint realization that everything behind me was gone. I buttoned my shirt, the same one from Lauren's party, and drove to Falcon Metal's Denver facility. When I stepped inside, the noise of machinery hit me like music. The hum of production lines, the echo of boots on concrete. It was chaos, but it was my kind of order. Spencer Crawford met me at the front office with a grin. Welcome to the better version of your life, he said, slapping a folder into my hands. Don't oversell it, I said, but I smiled. It felt good to be wanted somewhere again. We spent the day walking the floor. I met team leads, studied layouts, listened to the problems they'd been having with scheduling and supply flow. My brain switched into gear. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed problem-solving that didn't involve emotional landmines. That night, Spencer took me out for dinner, his version of a welcome. We've been trying to recruit you for months, he said between bites. Guess I owe your ex-wife a thank you card. I didn't answer, just looked out the window at the dark skyline. Sorry, he said quickly. Bad joke. I waved it off. No, you're right, she did me a favor, I just didn't see it then. By the end of that week, I had a small apartment and a new rhythm. My days started early again, but for different reasons. I liked getting to the plant before everyone else, walking the floor with a coffee in hand, imagining ways to make it better. It reminded me that my work meant something. At night, I filled the silence with plans, budgets, timelines, training systems. Every line I drew was a small act of self-respect. By the second month, I'd built a new scheduling model that cut overtime by 20%. The company took notice. Spencer started calling me our quiet miracle. He wasn't wrong. Quiet was how I worked best. 3 months in, I stopped thinking about Lauren every day. Then it became every week. Then not at all until something small, a scent, a word, a song would pull her name back into my mind like a loose thread. That summer, my promotion came through. Assistant plant manager, salary bump, benefits, a company car. I drove that car through the Colorado mountains one weekend and realized I wasn't escaping anymore. I was simply gone. No resentment, no nostalgia, just space. By year 2, my life looked nothing like the one I left behind. I'd bought a modest home in Lakewood, a single-story house with a small yard and a view of snow-capped peaks on clear days. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Every nail, every payment, every hour worked belonged to me. And then there was Melissa Grant. We met at a joint training seminar between Falcon and one of its suppliers. She was 31, a project engineer with a PhD in industrial systems. She wore confidence like a well-fitted jacket, comfortable natural. During a break, she noticed me adjusting a chart on the wall. "You're the only one in this room who actually understands how the plant side works," she said. "Occupational hazard," I replied. "You spend long enough solving problems on the floor, you stop trusting charts." She laughed a real laugh, not the polite academic kind I'd heard from Lauren's circles. From there, conversations became coffee, became dinner, and dinner became weekends that didn't feel like obligations. With Melissa, there was no competition. No invisible scoreboard. When I told her about my ideas for improving production flow, she listened not as a skeptic, but as a collaborator. One night she said, "You know, experience like yours can't be taught. I can model efficiency on paper, but you live it." That was the moment I realized what respect actually sounded like. While my life took root in Colorado, Lauren's seemed to unravel quietly in the background. I never looked her up, but news traveled through Nathan Quinn, an old friend who stayed in touch. She came by the plant, he told me during a call one evening, asked for your forwarding address. I told her I didn't have it. "Good," I said. She looked rough, man. Said it was urgent, some family matter. "There's no family left between us," I said, and meant it. Nathan sighed. She kept saying she needed to talk. "I think she finally realized what she lost. Or what she can't replace," I muttered. He chuckled. "Same thing." The attempts didn't stop. My mother mentioned Lauren calling her every few months, leaving long voicemails about how she owed me an apology. "She sounds desperate," Mom said once. "You sure you don't want to hear her out?" "I've heard everything already," I replied. Lauren even reached out through old co-workers. Someone said she'd shown up at the old plant twice asking if they knew where I was. Eventually, she hired a private investigator, but he couldn't find me. I'd changed jobs, numbers, accounts, everything. My digital trail ended the day I left her. That was intentional. By year 3, I had everything I once thought. We'd share a steady home, good income, and a partner who treated me like an equal. Melissa and I split bills, planned trips, and respected each other's independence. We didn't need each other to survive. We chose each other because we wanted to. That distinction mattered more than I ever expected. Lauren, on the other hand, was struggling. Nathan told me she was working part-time at a counseling center for barely $35,000 a year. She'd taken a roommate to keep up with rent, and every relationship she tried to start fizzled out. "She keeps comparing them to you," Nathan said. "She even told someone you were the steady one who got away." I laughed softly. "No, Nathan. She didn't lose me. She released me." He paused. "That's one way to look at it. It's the only way," I said, "because for the first time I actually like who I am." The contrast between then and now was stunning. I'd spent 6 years funding her dream, deferring my own without realizing it. I used to believe marriage meant sacrifice, but I'd confused sacrifice with self-erasure. With Melissa, I learned what partnership truly looked like. We both carried weight, but no one called the other a burden. When she stayed late for project deadlines, I didn't resent it. I cooked dinner. When I had to work weekends, she dropped by with coffee and blueprints for her latest system model. It wasn't grand romance. It was steady, respectful, and real. And it healed something inside me that I didn't know was broken. One evening in early 2024, as the sun set behind the mountains, I stood on my back porch, coffee in hand, and realized something simple but profound. Lauren had been my past, but she was no longer my story. Still, life has a strange way of circling back when you least expect it. 2 months later, while reviewing production schedules in my office, my assistant Grace knocked on the door. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Says she's your wife." I looked up from the paperwork. My wife is working in Boulder right now. This one isn't, Grace said. She's in the lobby. Should I call security? Through the window, I saw her 3 years older hair, shorter face, drawn, but unmistakably Lauren. I exhaled. No. Give me 5 minutes, then send her in. Grace hesitated. Are you sure? Yeah, I said quietly. It's time to see what the past wants. As she walked away, I straightened my tie, closed the files, and waited. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, curious. I wasn't the same man she'd left behind. When the door opened and Lauren stepped in, the look on her face said she expected to find the version of me she once knew. But that man was gone, and she was about to find out just how completely. When Grace knocked, I thought it was just another meeting, but when she said, "There's a woman here claiming to be your wife," I knew. Through the glass wall of my office, I saw her. Lauren. 3 years older hair, shorter face, pale from a long drive. She looked out of place in the factory lobby, an academic dropped into a world that ran on grit. Give me 5 minutes, I told Grace, then send her in. When Lauren stepped inside, her confidence cracked just a little. Nice office, she said, trying to sound casual. Plant manager, huh? Congratulations. You've got 5 minutes, I said. Her smile faltered. Straight to business as always. 4 minutes, 50 seconds. She sat down slowly. I've been trying to reach you for 3 years. You never answered. I know. You know? She blinked surprised. Then why? Because closure is for people who can't live with their choices, I said. I made a mistake, Evan. No. You made a plan, I replied. You had those papers notarized. You rehearsed your little speech. That's not a mistake. That's choreography. I was under pressure. You don't know what that time was like for me. I do, I said quietly. I was the one paying for it. She looked away, ashamed. I shouldn't have said what I did that night. About being independent. About carrying dead weight, I finished. Her voice broke. I was scared. I didn't know who I was without that degree. Everything was spinning and you were just calm. I hated that. You hated that I didn't need validation, I said. That's different. She was silent. The air between us felt like glass. Finally, she said, I just wanted to understand. Why disappear completely? Why change your number? Why not let me say sorry? Because forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, I said. It means I stopped caring. She flinched like I'd hit her. Are you seeing someone? Yes. Her voice trembled. Is it serious? Serious enough, I said. She has a PhD, too. The difference is she treats me like an equal, not an assistant. Lauren's face went pale. You don't have to say it like that. I do, I said. Because you never asked what I wanted, not once. You just assumed my life ended where yours began. She leaned forward. Please, Evan, I've changed. I just want a chance to fix what I broke. I looked at her. You didn't break it. You ended it. She wiped her tears. I lost everything after that night. My job, my friends, my confidence. I thought I could build a future alone, but I was wrong. Then learn from it, I said. But don't come here expecting to rebuild it with me. Her eyes searched mine, desperate. Can't you at least forgive me? I already did, I said softly. That's why I'm calm now. She froze. Then why can't we start over? Because I don't trust the version of me you liked, I said. He was useful to you, not loved. Grace knocked on the door. Sir, next appointment in 5 minutes. Thanks, I said. Lauren stood clutching her purse. I hope you're happy. I am, I said simply, truly. She hesitated. Good for you. There's one more thing I added. She turned. What? Thank you. For what? For being exactly who you were when it mattered most. She left without another word. 10 minutes later, Grace's voice came over the intercom. She's back. Says she forgot something. I sighed. Send her in. Leave the door open. Lauren reappeared calmer but calculating. I lied, she said. I didn't just come to apologize. I know. I want you to come home. I am home, I said. I mean to us. There is no us, I said. Please, I've changed. I miss you. I opened my desk drawer and took out my phone. You remember Nathan Quinn? He recorded your graduation party. Her face went white. You're bluffing. I hit dial. Nathan answered quickly. Hey, boss. Still need that audio clip. Yes. The recording played through the speaker, her voice light and confident saying, Honestly, I should have done this years ago. He's sweet, but holding me back. I need someone who matches my level. A second voice laughed. You can't build a future with someone who peaks at shift supervisor. Her laughter followed. I ended the call. The room fell silent. I was drunk, she whispered, trying to fit in. No, I said, you were honest for once. She buried her face in her hands. I destroyed everything. I nodded. You did. I turned my laptop toward her. This is what I was going to show you that night, a relocation offer to Denver. $85,000 starting full benefits. I was planning to tell you after the party. She stared at the screen, tears blurring her vision. I didn't know. You never asked, I said. You never cared enough to ask. She wiped her eyes. Do you hate me? No, I said. I just don't love you anymore. I don't even think about you. That's worse than hate. That's indifference, I said. You earned it. She stood there for a moment, then finally walked away for good. That night I told Melissa everything. She listened quietly. No jealousy, no judgment. When I finished, she smiled faintly. She really drove all that way. Yeah, I said, even hired a private investigator. Melissa laughed softly. That's not love, that's guilt. I nodded. She just wanted to see if I'd built something better without her. And did you? I looked at Melissa, steady, kind, equal. Yeah, I said. Better in every way. For 3 years, silence was the only bridge between us. No calls, no messages, no drama. I thought it was finally over. Until one morning in March 2024, I found myself staring at the past again, this time through my office window. Lauren was sitting in her car across the lot, motionless. I'd already sent her away once that day, but she hadn't left. She was still there an hour later, just waiting. Grace's voice came through the intercom. She's back again, says she forgot something. Leave the door open, I said quietly, and stay nearby. Lauren walked in with a steadier look than before, almost rehearsed. I lied earlier, she said. I didn't come here just to apologize, I figured. I want you to come home, she said. I already am. Her voice trembled. I mean with me. With us. There is no us, Lauren. She pressed on. Evan, I know I hurt you, but I've changed. I've learned what matters. Please, we can start over. I didn't respond right away. I just studied her face, the same face that once looked at me like a placeholder for something better. You think time erases truth? I asked finally. No, I think time teaches perspective. Perspective. I almost laughed. The last perspective you gave me was from a stage calling me dead weight in front of your professors. She closed her eyes. I was young, arrogant, stupid. You were 32, Lauren. That's not young. That's old enough to know the difference between ambition and cruelty. She looked down, her voice small. I thought you were content staying where you were. I was content supporting you. Until you made it clear that wasn't enough. She wiped her eyes. I didn't know you were planning the move. The new job. If I'd known. You'd still have done it, I interrupted. Because it wasn't about me. It was about the story you wanted people to believe, that you climbed out of something lesser. She swallowed hard, guilt rising in her throat. You've built a good life here, she whispered. I'm proud of you. I didn't build it for your approval, I said. I built it because you convinced me I was nothing and I needed to prove at least to myself that I wasn't. Her voice cracked. You don't mean that. I do. She took a shaky breath. Do you remember the first apartment we had? That night we swore we'd never give up on each other. Yeah, I said. Turns out one of us meant it. She started crying, then quietly, the kind of crying that sounds like defeat. Please, she whispered. Tell me what I can do to make it right. You can stop showing up, I said. She shook her head. I can't. Then you'll keep breaking your own heart, I said calmly, because I'm done holding it for you. Her eyes fell on the framed photo on my desk, Melissa and me at a company event. Her hand twitched slightly like she wanted to turn it face down, but knew better. You really love her, she said softly. Yes, I answered, because she treats me like a person, not a project. She nodded slowly, the weight of that truth settling on her shoulders. After a long silence, she whispered, I don't expect you to forgive me, Evan. But I hope someday you'll understand why I did what I did. I already do, I said. You wanted freedom. You just didn't expect it to mean being alone. Her lip quivered. You've changed? I had to, I said. The man you left behind wouldn't have survived the way you ended things. She reached into her purse, hesitated, then pulled out a folded piece of paper. I wrote you something, she said. You don't have to read it now. I took it but didn't open it. Goodbye, Lauren. Evan, I mean it this time, I said firmly. There's nothing left for either of us here. She stood still for a moment, trying to find words that wouldn't come. Then she turned and walked out, shoulders trembling. I watched from the window as she crossed the parking lot. This time she didn't stop at the car. She just got in, started the engine, and drove away. That night I found the paper she'd left on my desk. I unfolded it carefully. Her handwriting was the same, neat, controlled, careful. Evan, you were the only person who ever believed in me when I didn't deserve it. I told myself I needed to grow, but the truth is, I was scared you'd outgrow me first. I thought independence meant distance. I was wrong. You gave me everything I needed to succeed, and I thanked you by tearing it apart. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I never stopped being proud of you. Lauren. I folded the note and slipped it into my drawer. Not out of affection, but because it felt like the final chapter of a book I'd already closed. 2 days later, I decided to write a letter of my own. Not to send, but to leave behind something that would say everything I hadn't at that party 3 years ago. Lauren, you once said I was dead weight. You were right, just not in the way you meant. I was weighing you down from becoming the person you thought you wanted to be. So I let go. You said I lacked ambition. You were wrong. My ambition just didn't look like yours. Mine was to build something real, something honest, something built from hard work instead of reputation. You said you wanted independence, and you got it. I wanted partnership, and now I have that too. We both got what we asked for, even if it came wrapped in pain. Evan. When I finished, I sealed it in an envelope and wrote, "Delivered never" on the front. Then I locked it away in my home office safe. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't closure. It was clarity. The next morning, Melissa came into the kitchen holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You were up late," she said. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just cleaning out the past." She smiled, brushing her hand against mine. "Good, because the future looks busy. We've got a house to visit in Arvada this weekend." "Right," I said, smiling back. "The one with the workshop and the big oak tree. That's the one." We clinked our mugs gently, and for a moment I felt the weight of the last 6 years lift completely. Lauren had taken everything I thought I was, but in the process, she made room for who I was meant to become. And that, I realized, was the real kind of independence. 6 months passed without a word from her. Denver's air had changed with the season-crisp morning's gold leaves, that strange peace that comes when you've finally made peace with yourself. I thought about Lauren sometimes, but only in the way you think about a storm that's already passed. You remember the noise, not the fear. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was Nathan. "Hey," he said, "heard something you'll want to know. Your ex moved to Seattle, got a job at a wellness firm. Apparently she's dating a professor now." I smiled faintly. Good for her. "You mean that I do. I hope she finds someone who fits her world this time." And I meant it. There was no anger left, just a quiet understanding that some endings are really graduations in disguise. By then, Melissa and I had bought the house in Arvada, 3 bedrooms, a wide porch, and a workshop big enough for both our projects. I'd built a new workbench, hung up the old coffee maker on a shelf like a trophy, and labeled the spot "Lesson Learned." We built our life on partnership. She respected the things I built with my hands. I admired the way her mind built systems that worked. We were equals, and that made all the difference. One night, we celebrated our 2nd anniversary. We went back to the Thai restaurant where we'd had our first date. Melissa slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a card that read, "To my favorite deadweight, thanks for carrying us both towards something better." I laughed so hard people turned to look. "That's dark humor," I said. She grinned. "You're the one who taught me to find light in what used to hurt." Later that week, I decided to finish something I'd started years ago. At the back of my home office safe was the manila envelope I'd written for Lauren after the night of her graduation, the one I never sent. I reread it once, then added a final note. "You taught me what self-worth costs and what it's worth to earn it." Then I sealed it again and drove to the post office. I didn't have her new address, but Nathan did. He hesitated when I asked. "You sure about this?" he said. "You're stirring up ashes." "I'm not," I told him. "I'm just returning something that belonged to her closure." Lauren received that letter 2 days later. I never heard from her again, but Nathan told me she called him after reading it. She said you were kind, he told me. Kind, I asked, surprised. She said your letter didn't sound angry. Said it sounded like a graduation speech. I smiled. Maybe it was. Months later, I found myself standing in my workshop one quiet morning, sunlight sliding across the wood grain. I realized something: the life I'd built wasn't revenge, it was redemption. Lauren's betrayal had stripped me of the illusion that love means saving someone. Real love, I learned, means growing beside them or letting go when they refuse to grow with you. That lesson had cost me 6 years, but it gave me everything that followed. One Sunday afternoon, Melissa found me sitting on the porch staring at the mountains. "You look deep in thought," she said. "Just remembering," I admitted. The old me would have spent this whole weekend wondering what went wrong. The new me just feels grateful it did. She smiled. "You ever think you'll see her again?" "Maybe," I said, "but if I do, it won't matter. We've both graduated." Melissa leaned her head on my shoulder. That's one way to put it. I looked out at the fading sky. Divorce was my diploma, Mel. It just took me a while to realize I'd earned it. The next morning, while getting ready for work, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in years, I didn't see the man who'd been left behind. I saw the man who had kept going. The scar tissue had become muscle. The silence had become strength. When I stepped outside, the air was cold, clean, alive. My truck engine rumbled like it remembered the road. I poured my coffee, took one sip, and smiled. The same coffee maker, the same flavor, but this time it didn't taste like survival. It tasted like freedom. At the plant, Spencer stopped me in the hall. "You ever think about taking a director role?" he asked. "Corporate's been asking." I laughed. "You mean the guy who used to be dead weight might end up running the place?" Spencer grinned. "I'd say you're carrying more than your share now." That evening, I stayed late finishing reports. When I finally locked my office, I paused to look at the framed photo of Melissa and me on the shelf. Next to it sat a small piece of folded paper, the last note Lauren had written me. I didn't keep it out of nostalgia. I kept it as proof that even pain can be recycled into purpose. Before leaving, I turned off the lights, letting the room fall into a calm shadow. For a brief moment, I whispered to the empty air, "Thank you, Lauren. You were right about one thing: I was dead weight. But not because I was holding you down. Because I hadn't yet learned to stand tall." I locked the door and walked into the night, ready for whatever came next. Some people think the end of love is failure. But I'd come to understand something deeper. Some failures graduate you into the life you were meant to live. And that, I realized, was the truest kind of victory. Here's the next story. At 4 in the morning, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I was awake anyway, rehearsing slides I didn't want to give. The screen lit the room. A message from my wife, Sarah Ellis. "Something came up. Relax, I'll explain." I read it twice because the words didn't match the life we were supposed to be living. Sarah is the kind of person who proofreads text messages, who corrects my "your" and "your" without blinking. At 4 a.m., she was typing fast enough to miss her own standards, and she was typing from anywhere that wasn't her sister's house. She was supposed to be with Lisa. "Girls' night," she said. "Wine movies back in the morning." That was the plan, and lately there were a lot of plans like that. Extra nights out. Extra makeup for casual dinners. The phone face down on the table like it had something to hide. I stared at the message. I could have called Lisa, but I already knew what I'd find. Weeks of small alarms had finally rung together. I typed back, "No need to explain. Stay with him, you're single now." My thumb hesitated for half a breath. Then I sent it. The message hung there, a line I could not unsay. The calls started instantly. First Sarah, then an unknown number I knew was still Sarah. I let them die in silence and switched the ringer off. The house felt too quiet. 20 minutes later, tires scraped across the driveway and a shadow crossed the frosted glass. The bell rang. Then came the pounding, open, 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 like urgency could rewind time. I put on a shirt, rinsed my face, and walked to the door with the slow calm that arrives when you finally admit what you've known for a while. Through the peephole, I saw her still in the black dress she'd worn, out hair-tangled, mascara smudged. "Daniel, please open the door," she said. "I can explain everything." I slid the deadbolt but kept the chain. The door opened 3 inches. "It's 4:30 in the morning," I said. "Funny time for explanations." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You were supposed to be at your sister's. You texted at 4 to say something came up. Now you're here looking like you drove over from somewhere you weren't supposed to be. Her eyes flicked to the chain. Can we talk inside? Please. 5 minutes, I said. On the porch. Start talking. She glanced at neighboring houses where a few bedroom lights had clicked on. Daniel, not out here. Out here, I repeated. 5 minutes. She folded her arms. Jessica called me around 1. She was having a breakdown about work. I went to help. Stop, I said. Jessica works nights at the hospital. She's been on nights for 2 years. At 1, she would have been starting her shift. Sarah blinked. I meant Melissa. Sorry, it's late. I'm mixing up names. Melissa moved to Portland 6 months ago. Color drained from her face. Okay, she said. I panicked. It wasn't about work. Jessica had a fight with her boyfriend. She needed someone to talk to. Which is it, I asked. Work a fight, Melissa Jessica. You've had 25 minutes to practice. Her eyes filmed. You're not even trying to believe me. I'm trying to line your story up with facts I already know. A car crept past. Sarah wiped her face with her wrist. Maybe it looks bad, she said, but I swear to you. How does it look, I asked. From my side. She swallowed. Like I was cheating. Exactly like that, I said. I wasn't. Then where were you, I asked. Give me Jessica's number. I'll call and apologize for doubting you. Panic flashed. She's probably asleep. She was awake enough for a crisis at 1. Her number, please? I don't have it memorized. I almost laughed. You and Jessica have been friends since college. She stood on your side at our wedding. You don't know her number. Sarah stared at the porch boards. I waited. Where's your car, I asked. What? Your car. You drove to Lisa's yesterday. She turned toward the driveway where her Honda sat under the street lamp. Right there. Interesting, I said. It's been there all night. She looked back at me confused, then horrified. I got up around midnight for water, I said. Saw your car through the kitchen window. I figured you'd taken a rideshare. If your car stayed, how did you get to Lisa's, then to Jessica's, then here? She pressed her lips into a line that trembled. Daniel. I already called Lisa, I said. Right after your first knock, woke her up. She hasn't seen you in 3 weeks. You canceled yesterday morning, said something important came up. She sank to the step. Try the truth, I said. It's easier to remember than lies. Tears hit the porch. If I tell you the truth, she whispered, you'll never forgive me. If you don't, there's nothing to forgive, I said, because you'll spend the rest of the night anywhere but here. She stared at her hands. I was with someone. There it was. I leaned against the doorframe. See, I said, simple. It's not what you think, she said quickly. It just, don't borrow lines that have been said 1,000,000 times, I said. She looked up. How are you so calm? Because I'm not surprised, I said. For 2 months, you've been home late. For 3 weeks, your phone has lived face down. A month ago, you rediscovered the mall and came home with bags from stores you never used before. You started showering the second you walked in. You picked a fight about how I loaded the dishwasher, left to clear your head, and came back at midnight. She closed her eyes. What happens now, she asked. I took out my phone. Now you tell me his name, I said, and then you leave. After that, we meet at 9. Meet where? With a lawyer, I said. Her head snapped up. You called a lawyer. Right after your text, I said. She hugged herself. The porch light threw our shadows across the boards, 2 figures joined by a chain I hadn't removed. 5 minutes are up, I said, and closed the door to the width of the chain while she pressed her palm to the wood like touch could fix this. Inside, I poured water and waited for the kettle to boil. Outside, the sky began to pale now. When morning came, the house looked different, quiet but charged like air before a storm. The porch light was still on. Through the window, I saw Sarah sitting on the step where I'd left her arms around her knees, face pale in the dawn. I opened the door. She looked up, fast eyes swollen from crying. Can we please talk inside now? I nodded once. 5 minutes. She followed me into the kitchen like a ghost. Her shoes clicked softly against the tiles she'd picked when we remodeled last year. Back then, I'd cared about grout color. Now I cared about evidence. I made coffee for myself and set her a cup out of habit. She didn't touch it. Daniel, she said, voice small, I made a mistake. I didn't answer. I just waited. People tell the truth faster when silence gives them nowhere to hide. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said. It was just complicated. Who, I asked. She hesitated, biting her lip. Trevor. Trevor from accounting. Her shoulders slumped. Yes. I laughed quietly, but it wasn't humor. The same Trevor who hit on Jessica at the company party while his girlfriend was in the bathroom. She flinched. Please, Daniel, don't make this worse. I'm not making it worse, I said. I'm clarifying the timeline. She rubbed her hands together. It wasn't planned, I swear to you. It started with talking, coffee breaks. He understood me. 6 weeks, I asked. She looked surprised. What? You've been distant for 6 weeks. That's how long it's been, isn't it? She nodded slowly. But last night was the first time it went too far. I let that sit between us. Too far, I repeated. That's a nice phrase for betrayal. Tears started again. I didn't mean for it to happen. You've been so busy with work. I felt lonely. So you fixed loneliness with infidelity. Her mouth opened, then closed again. I leaned on the counter. I noticed everything, Sarah. The way you dressed up on Tuesdays, the new perfume, the phone that never left your side. You didn't even bother deleting notifications fast enough anymore. You wanted to get caught. That's not true. Then why text me at 4 a.m., I asked. Why not wait till morning because part of you wanted this confrontation? You were tired of pretending. She looked down. I was scared. Scared of what, losing me? She nodded weakly. I smiled bitterly. You lost me the moment you thought I wouldn't notice. Her voice cracked. Can't we fix this? People fix things like this all the time. Some people, I said. Usually the ones who confess before they're caught. I'm confessing now. After I already called your sister, after you lied 3 times, after I caught the timeline in knots. That's not confession. That's surrender. She reached across the counter, but I stepped back. Daniel, please. I'll do anything. Counseling, whatever it takes. I already called my lawyer, I said quietly. Her face went blank. You what? At 4 a.m. right after your text? She stared at me, stunned. You called a lawyer before even talking to me. I didn't need to talk, I said. That text told me everything I needed. Daniel, please. It was one time. I took a slow breath. Then you just admitted you crossed the line. Thank you for the honesty. She grabbed my hand. I love you. No, I said, pulling away. You loved the comfort, the stability, the image. But if you'd loved me, you wouldn't have risked this for someone like Trevor Morrison. Her eyes flashed anger through the tears. He's not like you think. Don't, I said, voice sharpening. Don't you dare defend him in my kitchen. She covered her mouth, realizing what she'd done. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Yeah, I said. You never mean it until the world collapses. The clock read 6:15. Outside, sunlight crawled across the porch where she'd cried an hour earlier. Inside, her perfume still hung in the air, a ghost of yesterday's normal. She whispered, What are you going to do? I already told you, divorce. She shook her head like she could erase the word. It doesn't have to end that way. It ended when you lied, I said. This is just paperwork catching up. Her phone rang on the counter. She stared at it but didn't answer. The screen showed Trevor Morrison. I raised an eyebrow. He seems concerned. She silenced the call voice, trembling. He doesn't know I told you. You mean he doesn't know he's about to lose everything too? She froze. What do you mean? His girlfriend, Ashley, right? Sarah nodded hesitantly. I think she deserves to know where he was at 4 a.m., don't you? No. Please don't call her. It'll destroy him. I laughed quietly. You're still protecting him, even now. She grabbed my arm, desperate. It's not about him. It's about us. I want to save our marriage. Then you should have thought about that 6 weeks ago. Daniel, please. You should leave, I said calmly. Go stay with your parents. Or Trevor if he'll answer your call. He lives with Ashley. Well, I said, looks like everyone's due for an awkward morning. By 7, she was gone. Her car pulled out slowly, stopping halfway down the street before disappearing around the corner. The silence that followed was heavy but peaceful. I made another cup of coffee and sat by the window. I expected pain, but what I felt was relief. Like I'd finally stopped pretending, too. For years, I'd built our marriage on trust. Now that foundation was gone, but so was the weight that came with it. There was clarity in loss. And I decided right then that I wouldn't let this break me. Not anymore. By morning, the phone hadn't stopped buzzing. I ignored most of it until one call came from Margaret, Sarah's mother. Her voice trembled. Daniel, what happened? Sarah called crying. She said you locked her out. I looked through the window. Sarah was still sitting on the porch, hair a mess, eyes empty. Did she tell you why? A pause. She said there was a misunderstanding. Then let me clear it up, I said. Your daughter's been seeing someone else for 6 weeks. There was silence then, a sharp inhale. Sarah. Sarah covered her face. It was a mistake, Mom. A mistake, Margaret said, voice breaking. You embarrassed this family. Margaret, I said calmly. I'm meeting my lawyer today. I wanted you to know before this turns ugly. Her tone softened. I understand, Daniel. I'm sorry. Then to Sarah, pack your things. You're coming home. The call ended. Sarah looked up pale. She said that, yes, I said. You burned every bridge you had. At sunrise, 3 cars pulled into the driveway, her parents, her sister Lisa, and Uncle Robert. I opened the door before they could knock. Robert stepped forward. Can we talk? 5 minutes, I said. They crowded into the living room. Sarah sat quietly on the couch, twisting her ring. Robert began, every marriage hits storms. Maybe take time before what I cut in. Before pretending she didn't lie for 6 weeks. Don't make this bigger than it is, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You cheated twice, Robert. You'd know how big it is. Lisa turned to Sarah. You told me it was just emotional. That was a lie too, huh? Sarah's voice cracked. I never meant for it to happen. Then stop defending it, Lisa snapped. You ruined something good. Margaret looked torn. Sarah, say something honest for once. Sarah whispered, It's over. It didn't mean anything. Then why beg me not to tell his girlfriend, I asked. She froze. Everyone stared. You defended him, Lisa asked in disbelief. Sarah's eyes filled. I just didn't want to hurt anyone. I stood. You already did. Margaret's tone softened. Daniel, maybe forgiveness. I've already forgiven her, I said. That doesn't mean I'll stay married to her. Sarah's father finally spoke. Then it's settled. Sarah's coming with us. Sarah looked up, stunned. Dad? You made your choice, he said firmly. She turned to me, whispering, Can I at least grab my clothes? Take what you need, I said. The rest stays. As she went upstairs, Margaret lingered. You've handled this with grace, Daniel. I wish she had. I nodded. Sometimes the quiet ones break the loudest. She sighed. We'll get her out of your hair. When they left, the house was silent again. Her perfume still hung in the air, faint like the echo of something that used to matter. For the first time in years, the quiet didn't hurt. It felt clean. By noon, the house was empty. Her family had taken her things and driven away in silence. The sound of the front door closing behind them felt final, like the moment after a storm when everything is still but nothing looks the same. I stood in the kitchen staring at the space she used to fill her coffee mug by the sink, the half-burned candle on the counter, the framed photo of us at my brother's wedding. I turned the picture face down. My lawyer called at 9 sharp. Daniel, we can file immediately, he said. You have all the proof you need. I'm not after punishment, I replied. I just want it done. That's often the healthiest choice, he said. After hanging up, I looked out at the driveway. Sarah's car was gone, but her tire marks were still fresh, 6 weeks of lies leaving their imprint. That afternoon, the calls started again, unknown numbers, then one that made me pause. Ashley, Trevor's girlfriend. Hi, Daniel. She said, her voice calm but tight. I think we should talk. I hesitated. You found out I did? She said. He confessed after I confronted him with screenshots. I wanted you to hear it from me before gossip spreads. I nodded, though she couldn't see. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Don't be, Ashley said. He's moving out today. I told him I don't live with liars. Her strength surprised me. Good for you, I said quietly. Funny thing, she added, Sarah told him you'd forgive her, that she just needed time. I almost laughed. She's still lying to herself then? She'll learn, Ashley said. We both will. When the call ended, I felt something strange, not joy, not vengeance. Just relief that someone else saw the same truth I did. 2 days later, Margaret showed up unannounced. I opened the door, expecting confrontation, but she looked older, tired, apologetic. I'm not here to argue, she said. I came to thank you. For what? For how you handled all this, she said. You could have humiliated her publicly, but you didn't. I wasn't trying to destroy her, I said. I just couldn't live inside a lie anymore. She nodded slowly. Sarah's not doing well. She's staying with us until she finds her own place. Her father can barely look at her. I can't say I blame him. I didn't answer. She said you didn't yell, Margaret continued softly, that you just looked disappointed. That's what broke her. She broke herself, I said. I just stopped pretending to hold the pieces. Margaret sighed. You'll move on, Daniel. You deserve peace. When she left, I sat on the porch for a long time. The air was still heavy with the smell of rain. Somewhere down the street, kids were riding bikes laughing. Life had already moved on, even if part of me hadn't caught up yet. 3 weeks later, the papers were filed. No contest, no fight. She signed everything, the house savings, even the car all stayed with me. Her lawyer must have told her not to push. Word spread at her workplace. A friend of mine who worked in the same building called to tell me. Trevor got fired, he said. Office policy. They said his behavior created a hostile environment. What about Sarah? I asked. She's still there, he said. But nobody talks to her. She eats lunch alone now. People whisper. I didn't smile. I just felt tired. Maybe that was justice, the quiet kind that doesn't need witnesses. One night about a month later, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, but I recognized the tone immediately. I know you don't want to hear from me. I'm getting help. Therapy. I'm trying to understand why I made such terrible choices. I don't expect forgiveness, I just needed to tell you I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. Because forgiveness isn't always about the other person, it's about not letting them take more from you. That weekend, my neighbor Paul invited me over for dinner. You need normal company, he said. Over burgers and laughter, the world felt normal again. For the first time in months, I wasn't the betrayed husband I was, just Daniel, a guy enjoying a quiet Saturday night. Later, as I walked home, I looked up at the porch light glowing against the dark sky. It was the same light that had shone the night she came back at 4 a.m, pounding on the door. But now it didn't feel like a reminder of betrayal. It felt like a boundary, a line I'd finally learned to keep. For the first time in years, the house felt like mine, and so did my life. 3 months passed. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks ago. No drama, no courtroom scenes, no desperate last calls. Just signatures, silence, and closure. The house was mine again, legally, emotionally, and spiritually. I'd repainted the walls, replaced the curtains, and moved her favorite chair to the curb. The living room, once full of tension, finally felt like air again. I made coffee early every morning just like before, except now it didn't come with that dull ache in my chest. The routine was the same, but the peace was new. Sarah, from what I'd heard, had moved into a small apartment near her office. Her parents had tried to help at first, but Margaret told me quietly over the phone, we couldn't take the crying anymore. I didn't ask for details, but rumors spread anyway. She still worked at the same company, though her department had changed. Most people avoided her. Trevor, on the other hand, didn't last long. His girlfriend Ashley had confronted both of them at work with printed screenshots and receipts. He was fired soon after. She stayed, but from what I heard, it was a miserable existence. A colleague called me one afternoon. Dude, she sits alone at lunch now. No one wants to talk to her. I didn't feel joy hearing that. Just quiet confirmation that life has a way of balancing its own scales. One night I got a text from an unknown number. I didn't have to guess who it was. Daniel. I know you probably hate me, but I wanted you to know I'm seeing a therapist. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I read it twice, then deleted it. Not out of anger, just clarity. Forgiveness isn't a text message. It's the quiet act of letting go without needing to explain why. By the second month alone, I started changing things. I bought a new couch, gray, simple, modern. I joined a gym, started hiking on weekends, even learned how to cook more than grilled chicken. My neighbors noticed the difference before I did. You look younger, Paul said one morning. Guess peace suits you. He was right. Work was going well, too. Without emotional chaos dragging behind me, I was sharper faster. My boss noticed and offered a promotion. I accepted not because of ambition, but because I finally had energy again. One Saturday morning while mowing the lawn, I saw Margaret walking up the driveway. I turned off the mower. She looked tired but warm. I just wanted to thank you again, she said softly, for how you handled everything. I didn't want to ruin her, I said. Just stop being ruined by her. She nodded. She's struggling. But maybe that's what she needs. Growth comes from pain, doesn't it? Sometimes, I said, but only if you face it. She says she dreams about that night, Margaret whispered, about you telling her to stay where she was. I gave a faint smile. That text was the best thing I ever sent. She smiled sadly, then turned to leave. You'll find someone better, Daniel. Someone who values peace as much as you do. When she drove away, I stood there for a while, feeling the breeze move through the trees. Later that evening, my neighbor Paul invited me out for dinner. Karen's visiting her sister, he said. You're not sitting home again. We went downtown, just two guys laughing over burgers and bad jokes. No pity, no questions, just normal life again. On the drive back, Paul asked, You ever think about dating again? Not yet, I said. I'm still enjoying not being lied to. He laughed. Fair enough. When you're ready, I know someone who's nothing like Sarah. That's already an upgrade, I said. We both laughed, and for the first time, it didn't feel forced. That night, as I stood on my back porch, the sky was clear. The same porch where months earlier, Sarah had cried and begged for forgiveness. Now it was just me, the soft hum of the neighborhood, and the faint smell of rain in the air. I thought about everything 8 years of love, betrayal, and rebuilding. It wasn't wasted time, it was a lesson in boundaries. Some people learn to save their marriage, others learn to save themselves. I chose the second. I turned off the porch light, closed the door, and felt something I hadn't in years, peace pure and unshakable. It was a quiet Sunday morning when my phone buzzed again. The sun hadn't even cleared the horizon yet, and for a second my heart jumped the way it used to. Some habits take longer to die. The message preview showed a name I hadn't seen in months. Sarah. Daniel, I don't want to cause trouble. I just wanted to say thank you for how you ended things. It forced me to face myself. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the message as light crept across the counter. A part of me wanted to ignore it like all the others I'd deleted. But something about this one felt different, less desperate, more resigned. She continued, I know you're happier now. You deserve to be. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted to tell you that I finally understand what I destroyed. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, but because silence was the only answer that still told the truth. Around noon, I went for a drive, windows down, music low. The same roads we used to travel together felt wider somehow, cleaner. I stopped at a small diner on the edge of town, ordered black coffee, and sat by the window. There were couples there laughing, leaning close, sharing pancakes. I didn't feel envy anymore. I felt gratitude. I'd learned how to be whole without needing someone else to fill the silence. That afternoon, Lisa, her sister, called. Hey, she said carefully. Don't hang up. This isn't about her. I'm listening. I just wanted to say thanks, she continued, for not blasting everything online, for not humiliating her worse than she already did herself. I wasn't looking for revenge, I said, just honesty. She knows that now, Lisa said quietly. You were the first person who ever told her no and meant it. Then maybe that's what she needed, I said. She's different now, Lisa said. Still broken, but trying. You should know she blames herself completely. I looked out the window at the fading light. Good. That means she's finally telling the truth to herself. We said goodbye, and as the call ended, I realized I didn't feel anger anymore. Just closure. Weeks later, my life had found its rhythm again. Work, gym, friends, peace. The house had changed, too. I'd replaced every photo, painted the bedroom a cooler shade of gray, and planted new flowers in the front yard. The neighbors noticed. Paul stopped by one evening. You've rebuilt this place, he said, looking around. Yeah, I said, brick by brick. He grinned. You know Karen's friend is still single? I laughed. You're not giving up, are you? Not a chance, he said. You've got too much life left to live it alone. I smiled. Maybe he was right. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday. That night, I found myself rereading old journal notes from before everything fell apart. Plans for vacations, small reminders like pick up her favorite tea, and ideas for anniversary trips that never happened. I closed the notebook and placed it in a box. That part of my life didn't need burning, it just needed storage. A reminder that I survived it. A few mornings later, as I sat on the porch drinking coffee, I noticed something small taped to the mailbox. A plain white envelope with no return address. My name was written in handwriting I knew instantly. Inside was a note. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know I'm leaving town for a while, starting over somewhere new. Thank you for showing me what real integrity looks like. I hope life gives you the peace you gave yourself. No signature, but it didn't need one. I folded the note carefully, set it aside, and let out a long breath. For the first time, her words didn't reopen old wounds, they closed the last one. Later that day, I drove out to the lake, the same one where we'd gone years ago on our first anniversary. The water shimmered quietly, just like before. I took out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found her name. Then I deleted it. For good. Not out of bitterness, but because I didn't need to hold on to what had already taught me everything I needed to know. Standing there by the water, the breeze on my face, I realized something simple but profound. Peace isn't the absence of pain. It's the decision to stop reopening the wound. I'd made that decision. That evening, Paul came by again, knocking on the door with his usual grin. "You ready to come out tonight? A few of us are grabbing dinner." I smiled. "Yeah, give me 5 minutes." As I turned off the lights and locked the door behind me, I looked around one last time. The home that used to feel haunted by what went wrong now felt alive with what could still go right. And as I stepped outside, I thought back to the message that started it all. Something came up. Relax. I'll explain. Funny how those words used to sting. Now they reminded me of the moment everything truly began, not the end of my marriage, but the start of my freedom. I walked to Paul's truck, climbed in, and didn't look back. For the first time in years, the road ahead was mine, and I wasn't afraid to drive it alone. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.